Hello there and welcome to another edition of Ask David. So let's get on and answer some of your most pressing gardening questions. Now, Theresa watched our most recent webinar, our online masterclass that we put out a couple of weeks ago about composts, composting and fertilisers, and she says she's got one question about that, and that's that her homemade garden compost very often produces weed seeds that pop up when she uses the compost around the garden. So Theresa, the key thing here is to remember to mix your compost thoroughly while you're making it. Mix the outside of the heap into the centre of the heap regularly, and that way you'll give everything a chance to be mixed into the centre, where the heat in the centre of the compost heap will kill off those weed seeds. If you leave it unstirred, you'll find that the edges of the compost heap will be cooler and those weed seeds can survive. Now, next on the agenda, Lindsay has got in touch to say that she's wondering what's the matter with her thalictrum. It's got yellow leaves at the bottom and she's wondering if she can do anything to stop it going yellow at the base. This looks like it's just down to the hot, dry year, Lindsay, and I think there's nothing that you can do. Those leaves at the base are the first ones that emerged, and as they grow up, as the plants grow up, you find that those lower leaves will quite often go yellow, and I think that's been exacerbated by the hot, dry conditions, and it shouldn't happen in future years if they're standard years. The one thing that you can do to help avoid this is to mulch around the base of your thalictrum plants this autumn. Give them a good 2-inch or 5-centimetre layer of well-rotted garden compost spread around the base of the plants to help improve the soil, and that should retain some moisture in the ground next summer, and if it's as hot and dry as it has been this summer, then it shouldn't cause your thalictrum leaves to go yellow. Richard wants to move some of his border plants around, and he asks about moving things like lupins and euphorbias, those things that have flowered earlier on in the season. He wants to know when is the earliest this summer and autumn that he can move those plants into a stock bed so that he can revamp the rest of the border. I'd be inclined to wait until the autumn, really. Wait until mid to late September, when most plants are beginning to start to die down and start to go back down into the ground. Most perennials are, in any case. And then you can dig those plants up. There should be some more moisture in the soil by then, which means that if you do lift them, the plants won't desiccate so quickly. You'll find that the conditions overnight certainly will be cooler, and those plants will transplant much easier and stand a better chance of survival. There's always the risk moving plants in the middle of the summer that you will cause those plants to suffer a check, and even if they don't die completely, they might well be weakened. So my advice would be to wait until the autumn has started proper. Irene has got a question about her plants getting spots on the leaves. She says she regularly gets leaf spots on things like roses, but this year more than ever she's got lots of spots popping up on all sorts of different plants, and she wonders what she can do to prevent it. She doesn't use chemicals, and she wants to know if there's anything culturally that she can do. So Irene, I would be inclined to get the soil in really good condition, and that way you'll keep your plants healthy, they won't be under so much stress, and they'll be able to shrug off most of those leaf spot problems, most of which are caused by fungal infections. So add a really good layer, perhaps 2 inches or 5 centimetres of well-rotted garden compost or another form of organic matter, things like spent mushroom compost or really well-rotted manure. Add that layer this autumn and get your soil in good condition, and then next summer you'll find that your plants will grow much healthier and much stronger, and they'll be able to shrug off those leaf spots. The other thing that's really key is to up the feeding of your plants with potash. Now you can apply sulfate of potash around the base of your plants in the spring just as they're starting into growth, and then make a second application in around about June or July time, and potash toughens up the foliage of plants and means that they're much more resilient to both fungal infections and also a whole range of different pests. Finally this week, Jayne has got in touch about her crinodendron, or her Chilean lantern tree as she calls it. She says it's got to about 10 feet in height, it's quite spindly, and she wants to prune it back so that she gets a much bushier, more compact plant. And she's asking when she can do that. Jayne, I would be inclined to wait until the autumn and then cut your plant back by about 1/3 of its height. Don't be too drastic at this stage, and that will help make the plant a little bit more compact to start with, but it'll also stop it rocking around in the autumn winds and again over the winter months. And then next spring, probably in around late April, beginning of May, just as the plant is starting into growth, I'd be inclined to cut it quite hard back down to at least 1/3 of its original height, and try and get it to produce lots of strong stems from the base that you can train into a much more compact plant. So there you are, that's it for this week. More answers to your gardening questions in next week's Ask David. I'll see you then.